Hi, it's Martin from Martin's Engine Services. Just thought I'd make a video, show you what I'm up to in the workshop this week. The main job is the rebuild of this Vauxhall X14XE engine, which is out of a 1300 ORCI saloon stock car. This engine's done a couple of meetings this year, and the owner's had some very good results with it so far. Performance has been very good. They did notice on Saturday that it had started to breathe a little bit of oil from the crankcase breather into the oil catch tank. It's not uncommon for these to breathe a little bit, but this has started to breathe quite heavily. They will go on for quite some considerable time like this, and they will start obviously burning corresponding amount of oil, which will eventually lead to a lack of performance. And as the racing season's only just got going now, and they've got a couple of week break for the next meeting, it'll be wise to give it an overhaul just to make sure everything's in order. There's no real particular problems with it at all, just basically piston rings which get worn out quite quickly, which I'll come back to a little bit later. You can see the block's all nice and clean, given it a thorough degrease, blown all the oil ways out, laid the main bearing shells back in, ready for assembly, and I'll be popping the crank in soon. I'm just going to give the crank a little polish on the mains here actually, because there's a few marks on there. It possibly looks a bit worse on the camera than it actually is, but I'll give it a little clean up while it's out. The big end journals are absolutely perfect. There's not a mark on any of them, so it's very good considering the amount of use and abuse it gets, shall we say. This engine's done a couple of seasons of racing now, and given the fact that the standard engine is probably rev limited to about 6,500, and this has been pushed considerably north of 7,500, and is obviously producing slightly more power than the standard engine, all the standard components seem to hold up remarkably well. I mean, as the name stock car suggests, these engines do have to be stock, and they are required to be built to the same specifications or rebuilt to the same specifications as the original GM components. You can use aftermarket parts, of course, but they have to be, you know, as original aftermarket replacement parts. If that makes sense. So there's no fancy lightning, polishing, blueprinting, etc., polishing cams, modifying ports, or anything of that nature. And from time to time, they will strip these engines down and have a good look at them just to see if anybody's been up to anything. All these engines do actually run a restrictor plate in the carburettor to maintain a level playing field on performance levels. You can't really see it, but it's bolted under the carburettor face here, and as it says in there, 20mm, which is the absolute maximum size, and these will be checked. This is one of the items that does cause the accelerated piston ring wear, because obviously you now have a restriction in the air flowing into the engine, so you are trying to force as much air fuel through that restrictor plate as possible, so you do tend to run them a little fuel oil on the rich side. This does seem to lead to a little bit of bore wash, which seems to be happening here, because although these rings have got very good spring tension in them, they are exceptionally sharp on the edges. They're almost razor sharp. Some are worse than others, but on a couple of pistons, I say they are quite bad. You can see the start of the oil burning here, where it's starting to burn the carbon away, and you see the oil build up on the piston. I started cleaning this piston up. They don't seem to wear too badly at all. You don't see any major issues with them. Don't seem to get any wear in the lands at all. The new rings always sit nicely in there, and you don't seem to get any problems with that. There's a bit of pickup on a couple of them on the skirts. They've probably got a bit warm in the past, but it's nothing too serious. It doesn't seem to cause any issues. I say, given these engines have been revved considerably past the design RPM, we don't seem to get very many failures, and they are a very popular unit used in a wide range of Vauxhall-based vehicles. You see the connecting rods are quite a skinny item here at the top, but otherwise quite a good chunky size here and reasonable thickness. Of course, the fractured cap style rod, which is quite a good idea. It does give a nice positive location. The bearings, and so you don't seem to see any major. I've never seen any failures with these rods at all. So no, I think this period of GM engines was quite robust. Unlike the unit that followed it, especially the chain drive version. I did make a video on dismantling a 1600 Astra engine, which was the later belt driven unit, and that was not a very nice engine inside at all compared to these. I mean, given quite often that the radiators do get choked with shale, particularly in a wet day, obviously these engines do get quite warm, but say we don't seem to have any problem with head gasket failures or head warping or anything of that nature, so they seem to take the use and abuse quite well. And on the subject of shale, and if anybody knows anything about it, who has worked with anything that's covered in shale, it is a truly awful product. And there is some of it. I know what you think it looks like, and it almost is. It's got lumps of grit in it, bits of dirt off the track, and all manner of things. It's particularly delightful when it gets onto the outside of the engine and gets a bit of oil on it, and so a bit of water and a bit of track debris, and it literally coats everything in this thick, sticky, horrible layer, which seems impervious to sort of any form of degreasing fluid or solvents. You basically end up having to scrape it off and really go at it quite hard to get it off of anything. It'll bake itself onto any surface that gets really hot, like the exhaust manifold, which I've got out here, and I'll show you that. It may look like the exhaust manifold has actually got a little pink coating to the arm, but this is actually burnt on shale. It goes like clay actually. It's quite a corrosive product as well. It does tend to attack everything it gets hold of, particularly aluminium and then exposed steel surfaces. Here's a few of the other components all cleaned up out here. Timing belt pulleys and tensions and bits and pieces. All been cleaned off of the shale and grime and ready to go. Water pump bits and pieces. Camshaft likewise sitting there. All these components seem to hold up pretty well considering. I mean, the timing belt cover seals them to a certain degree, but trust me, that shall find its way in anywhere. I'm actually in the process of I have actually been in the process of polishing the journals on this one. There was a couple of minor scratches and in there, but nothing serious. And the cam peaks are actually, and the lobes and the base is absolutely perfect. There's not a mark in them. And now, considering this engine had probably done a few miles on the road before it ended up in a race car, it seems to hold up very, very well. Say bits and pieces scattered here, bits and pieces scattered everywhere. One thing I do know about this, or I do have noticed about this ball wear issue, is the fact that you do get in the sump, and particularly some surfaces of this very slight grey tinge to the oil. Now this oil was actually fresh for the previous meeting, and has probably done the equivalent of probably 50 miles on the road, maybe a fraction more, but that's it. But you get this grey paste, which is a combination of piston ring wear and a little bit of wear on the bores, or just a little bit of discoloration from the bores. And that does particularly feature in the sump, which is why I would like to take the baffle out and give these sumps a thorough clean, because it can get coated in there quite nicely. You see it's all clean, ready to go. The bores themselves have fared quite well, really. There's a little lip at the top, but I've got to run the hone over them in a minute. They're not too serious, there's no major scores or anything, and you put a new set of rings in and everything seems quite alright. So that's clearly the problem, but there's not a lot you can do about it. You can see the corrosion here on these studs where the shell's got to it, and this pulley was all painted up. As you can see, the shell just eats through the paint and starts the corrosion off. It's a highly abrasive substance as well, so if it gets into anything important, it will create havoc and probably destroy everything. I've got to get this engine done for couple of weeks' time, but we're pressing ahead nicely, and they don't take long once it's all reassembled. I will have a cursory look at the valves. I won't turn it upside down at the moment because it's full of water and oil where I was cleaning everything, but we'll have a cursory look at the valves, but don't suspect they need any work. May just change the stem seals as a precaution. Give the carburetor a good clean out. I mean, the air filter is securely fitted on. In fact, we actually silicone it to make sure nothing gets in, but it still seems to find its way in there somehow. I've never figured out how. I don't think anybody will. Still, that's what I'm up to on that little job. Another quick update in the workshop. Any of you have watched any other videos may have seen one on my Lister G1 engine, and actually went a bit crazy over the weekend and got stuck in and got a lot of work done to it. Oh, a few stock car parts there. I've got the roof section fitted on. I made up a new end panel here. Missing. I made up another, or I'm in the process of making up a panel here. Repaired the wheels. I machined out the middle of the wheels, put some bushes in those. I made a new axle. You see some fairly heavy duty nuts to hold all together. It's got a handle on it. It's got feet, and it's actually come along nicely. Any of you saw my previous video, you may remember it going on about the throttle linkage saga, where I had the problem of trying to get the linkage from one side back round here because everything was back to front and the governor went backwards and forwards. However, yesterday afternoon I was tinkering around with it, waiting for customers to arrive, when I had a eureka moment. Dead simple, just turn the carburetor around, which I've done here. And now the throttle linkages on this side can be made to go to the governor, or works the right way round. The choke is now on the other side, which isn't a problem. Fuel supply is here. All the adjustment screws are where you want them. So that solved the problem very easily. A classic case of don't overthink the problem. I did laugh to myself and I thought, how easy was that? So that solved that problem. I'll give it a good run up the other week. It runs absolutely lovely. It's all working very nicely. I'm very pleased with it. So it's actually nice to get on and do a bit of work on the old girl. Anyhow, that's what I've been up to, or will be up to this week. And please, hope you like this short video. If you'd like to leave a comment or ask any questions, feel free to do so. And please like and subscribe. It all helps the numbers. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.